Married to a Shrink is an association with Love Lines LLC. Love Lines is a boutique relationship development company dedicated to guiding you towards meaningful connections. Love Lines offers expert dating coaching, personalized matchmaking by therapists trained in couples dynamics, and enriching online self-paced relationship courses. Our services are designed to empower you on your journey to building fulfilling romantic relationships that serve and honor you. To learn more, visit lovelinesatx.com. And now, let's get down and dirty with all things relationships. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Married to a Shrink. And this is season 2, episode 2, of Married to a Shrink. And today we are going to talk about power dynamics and the organic and sometimes non-organic way in which power and its, what do I want to say? How we are always searching for power in maybe a conversation or in a situation when we are operating within our romantic partnership. And so my co-captain, person alongside me for life and this podcast, is my husband, Michael. I'll allow him to introduce himself. And again, disclaimer, my allergies are really bad, so my voice sounds a little strange. So we're just going to kind of move through it. But babe, I'm turning it over to you.
Hey, y'all. Well, you didn't formally introduce yourself.
Oh,
so why don't you do that? And then
I'm Allie. I am the shrink portion of Married to a Shrink, and I am a licensed sex and couples therapist. I've been doing it for a long time now. So, all right, now I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, love. Thanks for that. So me too. As you can hear, I sound like a teenage boy right now. My voice is also gone. I am totally fine, but I think I was either yelling a little bit too much at my pickleball tournament, or maybe it's been the chemicals going on in our remodel of our home that I've just been around a little bit too long. But I'm the lucky guy that gets to call Allie's. I'm Allie's partner. I'm the lucky one there. I'm not a shrink, but being partnered with Allie for as long as I have, I've really picked up a lot of skills and still learning on the day-to-day on what it's like to be married to a shrink.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun, and sometimes I think you probably wish I would get out of my head and stop, doing therapy sessions in the middle of a disagreement. But I would like to kick off by kind of asking you how you would define control or within our dynamic, and what ways in which we kind of vie for control in our everyday.
Sure. So I think first let's define what control is, or at least what I think control is in a relationship. I think it's very much human nature that you want your view to be the right view, or be the view or the actions that you move forward with. So I think for us, there's really a couple things that come to mind in terms of where I feel like we vie for control. First, I think it's with our children in terms of what they are doing, whether it be educational. Just on the way here, we were talking about our youngest educational journey, and but their extracurriculars and their friends and what they're involved with. I think that's a big thing that you and I are constantly vying for control with. The other thing, in the current state, and this isn't one we have a lot of disagreement or discord over, but we are going through an extensive home remodel at the moment. And we both of us are very much creative and design minded. I think, we have strong opinions with that area. We are vying for control over what aesthetic or what tile we're going to go with, or what paint color. So it's a small thing, but it's something we definitely, I think, are vying for control through. I think the last thing is, what are we going to do on the day to day? Like, it's a Saturday. what are we going to do today? Like, and oftentimes, I think some couples struggle with this. I think oftentimes in our dynamic, I look to you to be our calendar planner. So what are we going to do? But those are just some areas that come to mind when I think about control in our dynamic.
I would agree. I think parenting is probably where we have the most conversations around influence, right? And I think before we kind of go into that, I want to ask, do you feel like there's been a situation or a topic of which you or I have tried to exert too much control?
I don't think there's a specific topic where we've exuded too much control.
Or tried to, right?
Or tried to. I think generally if we differ in an area, it's not black and white. We're kind of sometimes in that maybe the outskirts of the gray area. I think probably the area we differ the most would probably be politics, and even that where I think we swim very much in that gray area with each other.
But we don't try to vie for control over conversationally.
No, agreed. I can't think of anything. Is there a specific instance or topic that you can think of that we may have exuded or tried to exude too much control?
I mean, I think we have had, which is very common for couples, we have strong opinions that can differ on large things, which I think can make for a power struggle, right? Because I think when we feel very passionately about something, and especially something that has to do with our girls, then I feel like we have to sometimes take steps back from the conversation. I will say, to circle back to episode we talked about a while ago, I feel like when we're talking about conflict, one of our most challenging, I think, control situations was when we were trying to decide if we were going to expand our family or not through adoption, and when a situation presented. And I think that I say that, but I think we were more vying for influence, and that felt at the time like we were both trying to control the situation and control the outcome. I don't feel like we were trying to control each other, but I do definitely think we were trying to vie for influence.
I think that's a better assessment of that situation, because I think looking back at it, I think we were on the same page, and we were just I had made some assumptions in terms of where I thought your mind and where your thoughts were going to be.
Yeah.
But once we had vocalized to each other, we were really in the same corner.
Thanks for listening to Married to a Shrink, y'all. We're going to take a quick break. In the meantime, if you want to like or subscribe Married to a Shrink for more content and relationship advice, we would love for you to do so. We are so glad you are here, and we are so glad to see you investing in your relationships. Thanks, y'all. But I think that's a good example of, like, at the time, you were unable to see that we were on the same page because you were so much trying to vie for control of the situation. Mm-hmm. Like, does that make sense? Like, sure. You kept being like, I want to control that this outcome is the outcome I need it to be. But I was on the same page with you, but we could never, it took us weeks, not days, but weeks to get there because there was such a need for control over that outcome.
Yes. Why don't you, what are some, can you give some examples that you would experience with some of your clients? Obviously not, being secretive in terms of their
Yeah. I mean, there's people want to control outcomes for certain situations, like we just talked about, family planning extensions, whether you have another child or not, whether you have children at all. Those, again, are the biggest, whether to have children or not is really a conversation that should take place premaritally.
Absolutely.
But surprisingly, a lot of couples don't have that conversation. And then, or they assume, and they think, oh, I know how my partner feels right now, but they'll change their mind. And or I will have them change their mind, which...
Poor choice.
Doesn't work. And so, I mean, those have been... Infidelity is much more... it's easier to navigate, right? There's more of a playbook for how you move a couple.
How you recover from
How
that.
you recover from infidelity. But... For children or for family planning, you can't halfway do that, right? And so a lot of times couples who don't have the conversation, or they have had the conversation and they didn't get the answer that they wanted, and they still move forward with marriage, hoping that they can change their partner's mind, are trying to vie for control over the outcome that they're wanting to receive or obtain. But in the process of trying to control that outcome, so many behaviors are displayed in a way to vie for that controlled outcome that you start to get a whole mess of items in a dynamic.
That sounds like a wonderful appetite or wonderful situation for resentment buildup.
Oh my God.
That sounds like that would be potentially a relationship killer, because to your point, I think it's something that's a conversation that should have been had pre-marriage.
Well,
and I know some things can change over time.
100%. And so sometimes it is a conversation, but again, they think that, oh, my partner's going to change their mind. And to your point, people do change in a relationship. Everyone changes in a relationship. But what I have found is I have not had a couple to date, and mind you, it can definitely happen, that went from a stark no or a stark yes to the other end. They always had an inkling of what they did or did not want to do, and they either expressed it or they didn't express it. And then their partner was like, oh, okay, well, they'll just change their mind, and or they just assumed that they were on the same page, right? And so when you're vying for like control of that outcome, those dynamics, or those kind of, for the child thing or for family planning, those a lot of times come at an impasse, because either you stay together and you decide that, okay, I'm going to be content not having a child, or it becomes, no, I do want to have a child, and this partner and I are no longer on the same path, right? That is a very different situation than what happens in the control dynamics of when you're dealing with infidelity in a relationship, is that the partner who has been harmed is constantly trying to vie for control to prevent hurt and as a protective measure. And then what happens for some couples is they can try to start to control the partner so that there's no more indiscretion. There's no more breaches of trust or anything like that. But within that dynamic creates a whole other host of issues. And so the control dynamic it's part of every relationship. There's always a control dynamic, but where you lead to the toxicity is when you start to try to control the partner's communication or their behaviors or things like that, which a lot of times people will try to justify, especially after an infidelity. Well, of course I should put a tracker on them. They've lied to me before. Well, of course I should be able to control who they are seeing or how they are spending their time, because I have been harmed by this person, and that is not the way in which you can rebuild. And what I have always told my couples when they come in after an infidelity and they are wanting to stay together, I'm always like, this is a new marriage. We're starting from scratch, and you need to treat this like this is a new marriage. You need to grieve and say goodbye to the marriage that was and the person that was, because that's not who's sitting across from you now. And for some people, they can do that, and for some, they can't, because the control becomes such a coping mechanism or a dynamic that they just can't get rid of. And so the infidelity creates can create, I should say, a dynamic of which the control is there. And so as someone who has kind of operated, did you feel like you wanted to control when you experienced infidelity? Like, does this feel accurate from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, having lived through it, from a prior relationship, it was like starting another marriage.
Yeah.
And that's exactly going through therapy and meeting with the priests at the church to kind of talk through some of that. That's how they pitched it, was like, you got to rebuild all this. And it never was rebuilt. But I think it does kind of come natural, where you want, being on the side where the other party was unfaithful. I think you naturally do want to try to put in those controls to protect yourself. And I didn't do that, but I think that was my tendency, or my natural, like, I want to protect myself.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want you to go away another trip. The last trips you had your indiscretions. Like, no, I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah.
And in my personal situation, I lost control. Like, maybe my natural tendency would have liked to have put in some controls, but it went the other direction, where I lost control, and I was left floundering for control, I think, is in my situation.
Attention singles in Austin. Are you tired of swiping endlessly with no real results? At Love Lines, we do things differently. Our boutique matchmaking and dating coaching services are led by experienced therapists who bring their expertise in relationship dynamics directly to you. We don't just match you based on profiles. We match you based on compatibility, values, and long-term potential. While we work to bring your perfect match among our Love Lines clients, we also help you navigate the world of online dating. Our experts assist you with setting up dating profiles that truly represent you, giving you the best chance to connect with someone special. Whether you're looking for personalized matchmaking or one-on-one dating coaching, Love Lines is here to guide you toward meaningful and lasting connections. Ready to find the relationship you've been looking for? Visit us at lovelinesatx.com and discover how our unique approach can help you build a relationship that truly honors and serves you. There was not a shared power dynamic.
Correct.
Yeah. And which is what ideally you have, where the shift of power is equalized on a day-to-day. Yeah. It's a give and take, right? Especially if someone is very passionate about something or needs something, and they need to vie for control over it. It's allowing that, and then giving, and then it being able to take on the other end.
Sure.
Yeah. And so there is, to your point, that feeling of wanting control. And I think it also can get exasperated and even heightened, and people think it's sexy, I think, and a lot of control, that control dynamic, because you see it in literature a lot, like in
50
movies.
Shades of Grey.
Oh yeah, you go. Have you ever read that?
No.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was about to be really
I've seen the movie,
surprised.
but no, I've not read the book.
Or, 50 Shades of Grey is a perfect example. Twilight series, right? Like, all of those books are based on this fact that controlling and being so protective is a sign of love. And this is how much I care about you, is I am going to monitor everything that you do, right? That is a show of how much I love you. And I'm not even going to go on the soapbox of the toxicity that represents, right? And so, but people, that is their influence. And so a lot of times I have seen, to circle back to kind of your original question to me, what I've seen in the dynamics when it comes to control, you'll get folks into my office who, but it's because he loves me, or it's because she loves me that we're operating in this way, or that I can't do this, or that they're monitoring this. And that's because, one, it was either modeled for them. That's the way they have seen their relationships. Or two, the media influence that I just kind of referenced. That is how the books write them. The fun books that we're supposed to read for enjoyment and pleasure write that's the way relationships should be.
So what
to
would
be sexy and fun.
What would be the healthy way for in a relationship on just normal day to day? What does that healthy, control look like?
Well, I think that's challenging for me to just answer, because that is so nebulous. Like I don't feel like I can answer that appropriately, because that every situation creates a different dynamic that is needed to navigate for power. So I can't answer that directly. That's too broad. But I can say that there is an evaluation that takes place in any given situation. Where is your voice being heard? Are you able to operate in the way that allows you to bring most contribution, and in a way that is not stifling for you? That's kind of a check for that.
Are there signs or symptoms that maybe the control is not in a healthy spot, or is that again too nebulous of a question?
I mean, no. I think there's definitely red flags that, if you are if your whereabouts are being monitored, if you are being told who you can or cannot spend time with, where you can and cannot go, if you are being told what activities you can and can't do, what work you can and cannot do, those are definitely red flags that someone is trying to control you in your operation. If you are being asked to limit time with family and friends, that's an isolating tactic that can lead towards abuse. But I think those are, some more concrete. But I think the vie for control that moves towards toxicity can also be a little bit more covert in terms of conversationally, right? Not ever really being heard or being validated in your thoughts and your opinion processing. And for the partner to be like, no, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it, and never ask for an opinion from you. I think that is a very covert way of kind of influencing, or a very manipulative way of control, is for to ask for an opinion, or to ask for a thought process, and then never move forward with it. Mm-hmm. Right? That's just for the perception, like, no, look, I'm such a good partner. I'm asking for an opinion, but you never actually validate and move it towards action if it's your person's. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
What are, as someone who's experienced it, are there any other ones that you would bring up?
I can't think of anything. To kind of go back what you were saying with the exerting of control, for those that have been involved in an infidelity, would it have been inappropriate, like, hey, I don't want you speaking to such and such or being around such and such a person on a one-on-one basis because that's whom you were.
That's part of a trust plan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's always when you were building a relationship with infidelity, there's negotiations and trust plans, right? And so, yes, that is, in most trust plans, there is the ending of the prior engagement with that person, and that is a person that is off limits. That's routine.
Okay.
In a trust plan, yeah. But what would not be routine in that is, we're ending that relationship. There's going to be no more contact with that individual, but there's also not going to be contact with your mother who knew about it.
Right, that would be inappropriate.
That would be
for sure.
Right, but that's where people will try to control that. Well, your mom knew about it and never told me, and so therefore I don't want you to be around your mom. And it's like, no, we're not going to limit contact with a direct family member who knew about it, mm-hmm. right? Like that would be an influence of control that could move in to toxicity, right?
Sure.
But no, oftentimes it is part of a trust plan for the person of which they had the infidelity with, or whatever that is. If that's for more of like a structured affair, right? But if I've worked with people who had indiscretions with sex workers, or indiscretions with phone calls, the sex hotlines and that kind of thing. And so it would be very appropriate to put into the trust plan that we're no longer doing, that, and that there'll be a bill, the bills will be reviewed and all that kind of stuff. So that's all part of the trust plan.
Interesting.
What do you think are some of the main challenges that arise when one partner tries to exert control over another person or tries to overly influence?
I think, speaking for myself, I think it's when I start to feel like I'm no longer an equal party in a situation or conversation. Like my viewpoint no longer matters. What I have to say, it's no longer applicable. Whether I feel like the decision has already been made, I think that's when I sometimes feel like there's been too much control. It's just feeling like the ship has sailed. Mm-hmm. And then maybe there's a certain amount of, resentment, or just like a feeling of not being connected to a situation.
I think that's fair. I feel like that too. I think sometimes where we have had conflict is when I don't feel like it is a situation in which your opinion or your is to be taken into account. And I think that is sometimes a challenge for you. And I know that it's a challenge for my family. I know my family has struggled with the fact that I don't ask for opinions, mm-hmm. unless I want them. And I have made some great choices and made some very poor choices because I don't ask for other people's opinions sometimes, sure. Right? But I know that I think sometimes there's an organic thought process or ideology that like, oh, Allie should be asking my opinion on this. And I didn't. And then to your point, it feels like the ship has sailed, and that mm-hmm. and that you feel like there should have been some influence of control over that.
Sure, yes.
And so, but Outside of that, are there any other times where you feel like you should have had influence and control and you weren't given?
No, I think generally speaking, I think you're interested in my opinion, and you know, I think we're both good about engaging the other with whatever it is, whether it's a design choice or, you know, especially something with the girls, with our children. Generally speaking, I think we're good about it with both of us in both directions.
But I think that but fair. But I do think there is a bit of a discomfort when it comes to you wanting influence when maybe I don't want the influence. But there's got to be other situations in which you would like some control and you don't feel like you have it, because that's just a personality thing for me.
Sure.
That I am very convicted in the things that I believe strongly in, and I do my research around things. I have gut reactions to things, and I will move forward if it feels right for me.
Right,
and that's a very Allie thing, but that's not a Michael thing.
No,
you don't operate that way.
No, I don't. I do my research, and then I like to get buy-in or at least hear others' opinions. That's not necessarily like, I'm not necessarily going to go with the other's opinion, but I do like to see if I can get others' buy-in or at least their support.
See, but that's very different from me. And I also feel like I think we can be polarized in this, where I will go to the extreme and I won't seek anyone's opinion. And sometimes it works out great for me, and other times I fail miserably because of that.
And
where
to be fair,
you really seek people's opinions and influence, and that has been a struggle in our marriage. I know, because you have sought opinions that I'm like, they have no place. They should have no control over this situation. However, you are allowing them to have influence, and that has been a major challenge for me.
No, we've certainly have had those discussions, and I can acknowledge that. And I think to what I was going to say when you were talking about how you are very convicted in some things and you don't seek opinions, I think fairly in those situations when things don't work out, you kind of take the brunt of the outcome.
Oh, I take the ownership. I'm fully aware.
Yeah, you take the ownership from it. So
because I can't, I'm emotionally intelligent enough to know that, I can't not seek an opinion and then fail and then make it someone else's fault. No, that is my fault. I'm the one who didn't seek.
Yeah, so no,
control or influence.
I'm giving you kudos here in acknowledging that you take accountability when that happens. Yes. But no, I do have a tendency sometimes to seek others' opinions when there shouldn't be that place.
I think that's where
I think it's my natural way of looking for assurances and things, and just being unsure of myself in some ways.
And I think 100%, and I validate that for you, because I have seen that in our dynamic, right? Where you will allow other people control over a situation that they should not have any influence or control into, because you are unsure of yourself or unsure, you don't have the conviction. And that's where I think sometimes I have the conviction. And so for me, sometimes I feel domineering, I think, at times, because I have a conviction about something, you don't, and then you'll allow someone else to have control over it. And I'm like, but you didn't really care, so why did we not just allow my conviction to be the one we go with? Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. And that can be really frustrating for me, and that can create conflict for us. Whereas, when you have a strong conviction, I feel like I do a good job, and please correct me if I don't, of making sure you are heard with that conviction.
No, I would agree. You do.
But then where then it becomes challenging, I'm like, is when it's not you who has the conviction, when it's you've allowed another influence,
But
like
do
from family to.
But I was going to say, do I bring my family's opinion and be convicted about that? I don't think I do. I may
Rephrase.
And some of these examples that you speak high level, I may seek assurance or opinion from somebody else. We'll say a family member.
Well, let's be real about who it is.
My parents.
Your parents.
My parents. I will communicate their opinion, but I'm not necessarily vying or saying this is what it should be.
You do not now. You don't think that
But
when we first met that I'm going to use an absolute there, or like 95% of the way you operated was because of influence?
I would say a good percentage for sure.
Would you say 95 or would you?
I don't know if I would say that high, but it was a strong percentage. It was a B plus average.
And I think...
And I don't know, I don't know if it was, I think it may have been not your doing that unraveled or that changed as much as you just kind of pointed out some things, and I got out of that fear-based mentality.
Looking to build healthier, more fulfilling relationships? Wherever you are, Lovelines has you covered. Our online self-paced courses designed by licensed couples therapists are available to anyone, no matter your location. These courses delve into the essentials of creating and maintaining healthy relationships. Whether you're single, dating, or in a committed relationship, our expertly crafted content will equip you with the tools and insights you need to foster connections that truly serve you. With this commitment in mind, we pledge to donate 5% of every course sold to support individuals who have faced the trauma of unhealthy relationships. A portion of every purchase will go to the Safe Alliance, empowering survivors on their journey to healing and rebuilding their lives. Ready to start your journey towards better relationships? Visit lovelinesatx.com to explore our courses and to take the first step toward building the love you deserve on your own schedule. Cheers, y'all. I mean, I think it was a combination of things. I don't but we did have some conversations about who are you married to? Like, right? Because there was a time there where the control influence wasn't coming from within our partnership. You were allowing outside forces to utilize control, and I think we had to navigate that, and that is not uncommon for a lot of people who are newly married. I will say it was uncommon for your age, right? I have typically seen that dynamic with people in their 20s who are on their first marriage, right? But it was new for me to to experience it. One, from the purview I was experiencing it from, not as a couples therapist, but as a partner, and two, for it to be so late in the in the game, for that influence to still be that present, right?
Fair.
And I think because, again, we are polarized in that way, where I was raised in a nuclear family. Yes, my parents are still married, still have a very close relationship, but we were taught autonomy and independence from a very young age. And you had is it safe to say the exact opposite upbringing as me? Like, our upbringings, I don't feel like overlapped at all.
Other than we both came from very involved, loving families that are still together. I think that's really the only similarity.
The only similarity for our upbringing.
Yeah, no, I grew up in bubble wrap, as we've talked about much before.
And I did not. And I think the combination of that, and I think my own personality, where I can take the autonomy I think, to, I'm not going to say an unhealthy place, but I can take the autonomy to a place that doesn't always benefit myself. And so I think that has created a dynamic of that control influence in any kind of situation that I feel like now we have been able to navigate. But I feel like in the beginning, you were operating with a person who has high conviction about what I think and what I believe, but also has high conviction. Like when I don't, I also relent in terms of if I don't have high opinion or if I don't need high control over something, I let you, like, how do I phrase this? Like
You defer.
I defer. I don't need to be in control over everything. I don't have a controlling type thing, but when I do feel passionately about something that needs to happen, I will influence as much power as I can to make sure it happens.
No, that's an accurate statement.
But I feel like...
But again, I think our
that's
control...
normal? Is that?
I think it is. But I think that the control kind of going back and forth, I think is a healthy dynamic within our relationship. I would agree. I don't think that either one of us with an overwhelming majority, wears the pants in the relationship, as people say.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Because I think, again, make sure we're heard. Mm-hmm. And I feel like where it has felt like there's been a power struggle has been where communication is flawed. Because I find that we get on the same page most of the time is when we make a decision together. But I would also say that where we have our hiccup is in the communication of it. I think your communication skills are still developing. Is that fair without poor
I've got a smile on my face when you say that, yes.
But I think it's also, not to go into detail and kind of reference what we were talking about in the car ride on the way over here, but I do think that you do struggle sometimes for me to have a different opinion than you and for us still to be going with your opinion. I feel like there's a lot of times there's this forced, like, to me it feels like that enmeshment type of dynamic, like we need to think and be the same person. And that's what was modeled for you. That's how I feel like you've operated. And that is a real challenge for me. And we've talked about enmeshment in our last episode. I think that was our last episode, right?
Yep.
And so I think there's that for you. That's where I struggle with, like, I'm giving you control over the outcome. We're doing your outcome, but that's not enough for you. It's like you also want me to also have the same opinion that you have. And that's hard for me because I don't understand why it can't be yes and. Yes, the outcome, you are controlling the outcome. And I have a different opinion and a different thought process. And why can't that be okay if you're still getting the outcome that you want?
No, and I think we came to that conclusion together in the car as we pulled in today. That yes, no, that can happen. That can be the case.
But I don't feel like you really think that can be.
No, I do.
Because I feel like the conversations still keep getting pushed towards, yeah, but you agree to this. Yeah, but yeah, I do. And I'm not changing my mind. I will not change my mind on this. But I don't feel like there's really ever room for, when it comes to our dynamic, for me to, again, be okay with the outcome and you controlling the outcome. But I still feel like you still want to control my thought process or my opinion around it.
I think I'll try to be more mindful and cognizant of that, point it out when that happens, because I know you did in the car.
But is that but I'm curious about the why. Sorry, it's that therapist part of me that's like, but But why can't, if you get to control the outcome, which is ultimately what everyone wants in a power struggle, why do you also feel like you need to control my opinion? And we're on the same page of the opinion.
I think it's just another level of just assurance. Like, yes, okay, we're going to go through my outcome, but I want you to agree with me as to why we're going to go through this outcome. Like the thoughts may differ to get to that finish line, but I think it's me seeking your approval or assurance as to, yeah, you agree that the girls should be at, this particular program, but do you agree as to the why? And I can understand that, yes, you are privy to your opinion, and that can be where, yes, we're going to do this, but you would have done it differently had you been in control. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think where my challenge for that narrative is, but why? But your need for that to be, to control that feels stifling, and it feels like I'm not allowed to be my own person.
I think it's certainly not the intent, and I know we've talked about intent before, but I think it's to not bring up this specific situation on the ride here. I want to feel like I have someone in my corner that when the girls kind of come to us with their own opinions, and the fact of the matter is, I know you wouldn't go against the thought, but I think it's the subconscious that is the rationale that you give the rationale that I would give.
But again, no, because I'm not you, yeah. And I don't have the same opinion that you have. And so where it gets challenging is it's not enough for you just to be able to control the outcome. It's like then feels like you also have to control my thought processes. And that feels very uncomfortable and not appropriate for me.
I see that. I see that. Do you see, like, I guess, and again, this is where my fear mindset, natural tendencies or model tendencies come, I think, to play, is the girls coming to you and be like, oh, I don't want to do X, Y, Z, or I don't think this is what I want. We've already agreed that this is what we're going to do. We've exerted our control as parents. And you don't do this. So this, again, isn't reality. But again, I think it's the fear mindset. You saying to the girls in response, well, this is what your dad wants. This isn't what I would do. No,
that's triangulation. I would not do that.
I know you wouldn't do that. But again, that's why I'm saying it's...
How is that? But how has your fear base then become an issue in our dynamic? Do you see that? That it's like...
Yeah, it shouldn't, but it does. And I guess I got to figure out how to...
Because you have to own that. Because what you're doing, you're getting to control the outcome. And girls come to me, I will say, that's the decision we made as your parents.
Yeah. And I know that's what you do.
We're open to hearing why you disagree with this decision. This is always a conversational household. Mm-hmm. Your opinions and your feelings are always welcome. And we're open to have a conversation around it. But that conversation needs to be with both of us. And I cannot guarantee an outcome change. But yes, we can have a conversation around it. That would be what I would tell them. But what happens in that process, you get to control the outcome, but it's like, that's not enough for you. You also want to control my thought process.
It's irrational.
It's more than irrational. It's not okay. You know what I mean?
I acknowledge this. Yes. And I know we don't triangulate with each other. I know you don't, and it's just, I got to figure out how to tackle this one.
Well, for you, it's just, again, I feel like you really struggle with the yes and. For you, I don't feel like things can be like, yes and I'm getting my outcome and Allie doesn't agree with me. Mm-hmm. Allie's going to support me, and she's not going to triangulate, and she is going to stand by the decision we made. And if it had been her decision, she would have done something differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But for you, it's not. And again, I think it comes back to that trauma history, that enmeshment modeling, so many of the things we've already talked about in the podcast. But that's what creates that power dynamic that can move into, I don't want to say toxicity, but it can move into something that isn't comfortable or appropriate for me, which is you're being supported in the outcome. Mm-hmm. You get to control the outcome, yet you're also trying to control me. And I'm not comfortable with that.
I'm sorry. And I can apologize. I'm going to apologize. A blanket apology on that. I will work to do better because I don't want that to be the case. I want to get better about the yes and.
I accept your apology. And I appreciate that. Kind of like we've talked about to circle back in apologies. Why don't I say it's okay?
Because it's not okay.
Yeah. This is what we teach our children. Appropriate response to an apology is, I accept your apology, right? Saying, it's okay. No, it's not okay that you're vying for control over my thought process, but I accept your apology that you're going to work to remedy that, behavior, that action or relationship. And so I think that's kind of, as we kind of move towards the ending of this conversation and this session, what other small ways do you think that control dynamics can really influence a partnership? We've talked about it in terms of conversationally, and how even when someone gets the outcome they want, they can still try to vie for control over the thought process, which isn't ideal. We've talked about how you can vie for control over the outcome especially if you don't disagree. How else do you think that control dynamics influence?
I mean, I think it can be something as simple as where we live and where we're going to go to dinner. It can be really small things that people are vying for control. I think, again, it's human nature to, I think, vie for control. There's certainly a healthy level, and you want it to be a give and take. I think ultimately it comes down to communication. Just respect your partner, communicate your opinions, listen, be a good partner and listen to your partner's opinions, and, don't make assumptions.
Not making assumptions is a hard one. I know for you.
Yeah, that's definitely one I have to be cognizant of. I think the other one I struggle with a lot of times is just I'm afraid to give my opinion. I don't have any reason to be, but it's that whole.
Well, that's I think what's challenging about our personal dynamic is, again, like we had spoken about 5 minutes ago, because your fear of abandonment or rejection and all of those things, you want me to agree with you, even when I don't, and even when you're getting the outcome you still want me to agree with you because you don't want to be rejected. And it's like, that's not mine to carry, right? And so that's something that's within our dynamic, but also something within our dynamic is because of that same fear of rejection or abandonment, you won't give an opinion. And so it feels like I have to take control even when I don't want it. Mm-hmm. And so, again, sometimes I can come across where I feel like I'm being I'm forced into a situation of feeling domineering. And it's very uncomfortable for me. And I feel then like I stop liking myself and the way of which I operate because I feel pushed into a corner of having to be in control of everything all the time. And I don't.
No,
that's not
what you want.
That's not
know,
what I want.
No, I know we've had that conversation quite often with regards to where we're going to go to dinner. You got tired of. You would ask the question. You would ask for my opinion. I wouldn't give it, and then we actually had a conversation. You're like, I know I don't want to be left with making the decision. And what we ultimately, if those situations arise, I will say what I think is this place, or this place, which of those sound good, and you can make the decision from that.
Yes, because what would happen is you would vie for control later on in the process. I think we've talked about this in this podcast, no? Have we talked about?
Not in this episode.
Yeah, not in this episode. But yeah, how you wouldn't exert control when you wanted to or needed to. And then
post I wasn't happy with the outcome.
You wouldn't be happy with the outcome. And so it would be as if I was a controlling jerk. And I was like, but I right? And then I would be left to pick up the pieces, and
I can be tough.
What do you mean by that?
I may not be a therapist. I'm definitely not a therapist. My mental makeup can be very complex in its own ways. Not with your HSP, highly sensitive ways, but my own dynamics. The way I'm wired is a little strange.
No, we're all quirky.
Yeah.
But I think you organically have some complexities with your personality. I think those have gotten exasperated with life experience, and I think a lack of skill sets that
I'm learning
have made that you're learning have made it so that you do have some complexities that we navigate. Mm-hmm. But guess why you married a shrink. It's because of those dynamics. Huh. I don't know. Probably some. I didn't. I was not a true. Well, I do psychoanalysis, but not in the traditional sense. So we won't go down that path right now. We definitely won't do it on the podcast. And so, with all of that, I think you summed it up really well, that power dynamics are part of the everyday in any relationship, especially in a domestic, cohabitating, romantic relationships. There's always going to be a vie for control over any kind of situation. And so it's about communicating when you feel passionately and really strongly about something, making sure that you are not doing any kind of characterizations when you are communicating why you feel what you feel, making sure you're fact-checking and giving facts around why that is the best kind of decision and operating thing for you, and why you feel the way you feel, and making sure that you're hearing your partner when they're the ones expressing that, right? And allowing, like we kind of talked about, allowing for your person to not agree with you and to be okay with that, especially if you're getting the outcome that you want to have, that it can be yes and, right? And that not everything has to be that we agree and we are going to move forward. It doesn't always work like that. Like we talked about at the beginning of this session, there are things that you have to be on the same page about, like children, or whether you want to continue in a marriage, right? It takes both people. One can't just be like, no, I'm in, and the other person's like, I'm not. You can't vie for control over that situation. But when it comes for the day-to-day, there's going to be kind of an imbalance of power at any given time. And as long as there's equilibrium in the span of a lifetime, we're sitting pretty, right? And just being aware, though, of those red flags in terms of what is more controlling. Not basing your relationship, love, and lust around, Twilight series or 50 Shades of Grey or anything like that, right? Where those dynamics, BDSM is a whole separate thing that is not part of that power struggle that we're kind of talking about, right? And so making sure that you are having the conversations that you need to have, making sure you're communicating, that you're hearing the other person, and that it's not always your thoughts and processes that are the ones that are being moved into action, right? And that there's a balance on both ends. And so any final thoughts before we kind of close out? And
no, I think you summed it up great right there. I don't have any final thoughts. Just be a good partner, listen, communicate, give your opinion, be open to your partner's opinion, and enjoy the journey of life with your partner.
Because it's wild. It's pretty fun. Okay, well, with that, next time we are talking about attachment theory. Now, are you familiar with attachment theory, besides what I've kind of brought up or what has come up in sessions with us?
I don't know. From that term, it sounds very therapeutic. I don't know. I don't know if I do or not.
Secure attachment.
I do know that one.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about attachment theory, and we will talk about our particular attachment styles. And so we will have to do a little bit before our thing. I was hopeful that someone would be able to come on and we would be able to talk with them, but we'll have to see if that's going to work out. But that would be ideal, right? If we could have another couple with us to talk about their differences in attachment, because it's very rare that people come into a relationship with the same attachment style, or it's even rare for both partners to come in with secure attachment, which is where ideally one or both partners needs to land in the long term. So we will talk about that next time. But as always, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for navigating power struggles with me and vying for control on the daily basis. And I appreciate you acknowledging and hearing me in this conversation that is public conversation, but I do appreciate you hearing how it makes me uncomfortable when you feel like even though you're getting the outcome, you also want control my thought processes as well. So I appreciate you, and I love you.
I appreciate you. I love you too.
And until next time.
Have a good one, y'all.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Married to a Shrink. We hope it brought you inspiration and valuable insights to enhance your journey towards meaningful connections. Remember, Love Lines is here to support you every step of the way. Whether you're an Austin single seeking expert dating coaching and personalized matchmaking, or a global listener looking to elevate your relationship through our self-paced courses, Love Lines LLC is committed to helping you build relationships that truly honor and serve you. To learn more and explore our services, visit us at lovelinesatx.com. Until next time, take care and continue nurturing the love you deserve. Bye, y'all.